to our series here, Revelation chapter 13. Revelation 13, I think this might be the most well-known passage or chapter in the book of Revelation because of the story about the mark of the beast, which we will get here directly. Revelation chapter 13, let's go ahead and begin with verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doth great wonders, so that he maketh fire to come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Heavenly Father, we just ask for your guidance, your Spirit to bring forth this word and give it life, that in spite of any foolishness I might present, that your word will not be forgotten. Accomplish everything you send it out to do. We're asking now in Jesus' name. Amen. So beginning with chapter 12, which we saw a while back, we are introduced now to these literary elements of the seven personages. Now we've seen, the opening of the seals, bringing judgment on the earth, the blowing of the trumpets or the shofar, bringing judgments, and we'll see in the future there's going to be some bowls or vials taken from the altar of incense at the temple in heaven, mixed with the prayers of the saints poured out in the earth for judgment. But here we're introduced to seven personages. And we saw in chapter 12, the woman clothed with the sun was the nation of Israel. We're into a period of time, it's been going on almost a year now, it seems. Our mind is blown by what's been going on with this Israel derangement syndrome that's going on. Now we understand that we've been programmed by bots from the Arab nations. They've put a lot of money into this. And why are people going this? There's a lot of money to be made in this game, being an influencer and pushing a certain agenda. We see the second personage, the man-child, which is the Lord Jesus Christ, born to the people of Israel and then called up to heaven. See the great red dragon, which we know is that old serpent called the devil and Satan. And we see the Michael the archangel, who is Michael the archangel. And then last week we saw the beast out of the sea. And then today we're looking at the beast out of the earth. And then the last one, which we'll see in a few days or weeks, the great whore of Mystery Babylon, Revelation 17. Again, that's the biblical's term. I didn't make that up, or I'm not going to, as far as being a whore and all that, that's what the scripture uses. So I said this is the most well-known chapter in the Revelation, I guess, for a lot of people because of the thing about the mark of the beast. And so we saw the beast out of the sea last week. Now the Lord Jesus Christ predicted that in the last days there shall rise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. And the elect there is referring to, unfortunately, the descendants of Abraham, our Jewish friends. And that's in Matthew 24, verse 24. And although many false prophets have arisen, seeking to deceive men, and cults have arisen from it, and though many exist in this present day, there has never been an adequate fulfillment of the Lord's prediction, quite like what's going to culminate in the very near future, in this 7-year period of time the Bible refers to as Great Tribulation. Since man is incurably religious, a world dictator must provide man with an outlet for his religious inclinations. We have already seen that the Antichrist will come on the scene at the beginning of this tribulation period, and he'll take control of a world government. That's what the beast represents, a man and his kingdom, and it is a world global type of government. We saw the extent of that last time. We shall soon observe that the church here described in Revelation chapter 17 will exert such power that she dominates him, that is the beast out of the sea, so dominates him during the first part, or the first 3.5 years, while he is solidifying the power of the global government, that he resents her and turns against her to throw off the shackles, and it's clear by the fact that he destroys her in the middle part of the tribulation period. That we'll see when we get to chapter 17. And he sets up his own form of worship to propagate that worship. The devil provides a special man on the scene. The other awesome personages described in Revelation 13 as the beast that comes up out of the earth. That these two beasts, the first beast that comes out of the sea, the Antichrist, and the beast that comes up out of the earth are men, is clear by the fact what happens to them at the end of the tribulation, because it says in Revelation chapter 19 verse 20, and the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that received the mark of the beast, and them that worshiped his image. These were both cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. So this verse can clearly apply to these two beasts of Revelation 13. The first is a government, a global government, and a global governmental leader called the Antichrist, or the man of sin, who sets himself up to be God. And the second is a religious leader, a false Messiah, who incites men to worship the first one. So as we look at this second beast, look at this second person. Now we saw the beast out of the sea, 7 heads and 10 horns. We looked at is a conglomeration of the world governments that have always been, from Assyria, Egypt, Babylon, Medo-Persia, the Roman Empire. Then the seventh is a revival of Rome with a conglomeration of them all, and it has 10 horns or 10 heads, which we're told in the scripture that they will rise and they will be 10 rulers of a global government. And we are seeing that the world has already been divided up into 10 geographical regions, which you and I live in, what is called the North American, which is Canada, United States, and Mexico. And that's why there are some people who are globalist in their ideas, are fighting tooth and nail to put a border between us and Mexico, because they want to bring us all together and merge us together into one big happy family, if you will. And standing up for, I'm an American, that's a fight with some people. So we're going to look at this. He has 7 heads and 10 horns. We're also told that the 7 heads, when we looked at it last time, represents 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And everyone who reads this understands that the headquarters of the world government is not going to be Washington, D.C. It's going to be Rome. It's going to be Rome. So, and that is significant when we get a better picture of who the second beast is, the false prophet. So we're going to look at this second one, the beast out of the sea. We're going to see his person, verses 11 and 12. We see his power, verses 13 and 14, and his program, verses 15 through 18. And as we get into this, I think you'll see how timely this message is, considering the day with which we're living in. So we see the beast that comes up out of the earth. Again, this is a literary element, literary device being used to show us something. And like the first one, is a man and a kingdom. Right? So first thing we'd say about his characteristic is he comes up out of the earth. Now, the symbolism of the sea, we saw last time, means the chaos of the nations. The man will rise up to power during crazy world events. As we saw, many people have been calling for that New World Order to come out. As we saw the quote from David Rockefeller, it says, all we need is the right major crisis and people will accept our world government. George Bush Sr. said the same thing, considering the events we were going on in the first Gulf War, said, out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order shall arise. And then we find also the popes have been calling for a new international order, and they said it's the only thing that will keep the world according to them, these people, get the world as it is. And I'm all for a world government as long as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ, is the one who rules it. This one comes up out of the earth. And like the first one, it's a sea of chaos. This is a person who is a trusted man. And he's a part of a trusted institution. that has been with us for a while. We've always seen this institution, and we've always, and most of the world trusts it, and yet we're going to find out the truth of it here in a very short time. He has two horns like a lamb. Two horns. This is a Bible teacher from the early 20th century, Clarence Larkin. He made a lamb with the two horns on it, but it's more like this. And how sweet the little lamb looks. Yeah, but we'll see the truth of him. He's not as sweet as we think he is. He has two horns like a lamb. And horns are always symbols of authority. There's no crowns, but he has some authority because it's what a horn is. And by a lamb, it is meant that he is symbolic of Christianity, because that's what Christians are called, the Lord's sheep, and he is the shepherd of the pasture. I think many people remember this verse. Maybe you've heard it before. It's found in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15. And Jesus said, "Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves." So they pretend to be sheep. They pretend to be preachers of the gospel, right? And yet inside they are wolves, out to devour the sheep. So he's a subtle deceiver. And notice what he says, that he spake as a dragon. He spake as a dragon. We're told that the dragon is the devil. And while he has the appearance of being Christ-like, or the Christian, and yet he is inside, he is the devil himself. In spite of his pretense of Christianity, he's a Satanist. He exercises all the authority of the first beast. So these guys are in cahoots together. These two beasts, the one can't survive without the other, if you will. And so they're in cahoots, like Jesse and Frank James, or Bonnie and Clyde, or George and Tammy. Well, that didn't quite work out between us two, did it? So, since we'll see in chapter 17, we'll get a better look at his institution. But the institution is both a religious system, a false church, as well as a government. The false church is instrumental in bringing him to his popularity. And so what we'll find when we get to Revelation chapter 17 is this woman is riding the beast. Now, usually when you're riding an animal, you're in charge, right? You're sitting on a horse. You're supposed to be the one in charge of it. But it says that this beast later turns on her and destroys her. But we'll say more about that later when we get to chapter 17. He causes the world to worship the first beast. This is his ultimate purpose. Since the man of sin is the son of the devil, what does the devil want? He said, what was his fault? I will be like the Most High. I want to be worshipped like I'm God. He's not anti-religion. The devil is not hidden in atheism. The devil is hidden in false religion, false worship. This is the ultimate purpose. And once his false church has fulfilled its usefulness, it's going to be destroyed. Well, I'm done with you now. I'm in the place of authority, so I don't need you anymore. And then the beast and the false prophet will move to the place that has been their goal for thousands of years, Jerusalem. That's where he wants to rule from, because that is the city that God put his name on. Jerusalem, we're told in prophecy, is a cup of trembling to all the world. It seems like you're looking at a divided city which has 4 or 5 different religions residing in it, and some of those religions hate each other with a passion. And many of us stand back and scratch our head, and we know that Jerusalem right now is a powder keg. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4, where we get a lot about this Antichrist, man of sin. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day," and that's referring to our being called up to meet the Lord in the air, "that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." The falling away is a expression that many institutions as well as people will abandon the faith because of a great deception that is coming. Now, some people are saying that Christians are going to be deceived by the so-called UFO disclosure. I don't think Bible-believing Christians will be. If you've been taught the Bible and you've been taught prophecy, such as what we're doing here today, you will not be deceived by that. So, no, I don't really think much of it. But there's going to come this falling away first, and then that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And that's who this guy who wants to be worshipped. Notice what it says. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So if you remember, as we built this up over the weeks in this teaching here, that he is going to be believed by our Jewish friends that he is the Messiah, and you and I know that was Jesus. And then he was going to allow them to restore their sacrifices. The temple has to be rebuilt. You realize the temple destroyed in AD 70, our Jewish friends haven't been able to make animal sacrifices since then, until the temple was restored. And then it says, in the midst, he will step in and cause the sacrifices to cease and declare himself to be God. Despite his deceptive appearance and trusted by the world-professing Christians, the beast out of the sea, the one that's in sheep's clothing, he is a Satanist and a child of hell. And now we see his power. The important thing to understand about this power is that we're going to see a lot of this coming. And there's been attempts to do the same thing. He causes fire to come down out of heaven. Now, if you could do that, you can mislead a lot of people. I remember back in the 80s, there was a extremely weird church in New York City called the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. And they got caught, it was like 1985 or so, with a laser light that they were going to shine from atop the cathedral to fake the second coming of Jesus. It's very weird. If you look into the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City, you'll find it a very unusual, strange church. And then we've had, in about 126 years now, the alleged appearances of the Virgin Mary. Back in the early 1900s, she was supposed to visit some children in Fatima, Portugal. And if you follow the UFO researchers, you'll find that they thought this was very interesting because the vision was projected from an object in the sky, some type of UFO. Now, I don't believe any of these come from outer space, but we do find some hokey stuff going on. And believe it or not, it's amazing to me, but we've seen another appearance in Cold Spring, Kentucky. You would think our Kentucky friends wouldn't be that stupid, but they fell for it. And again, UFO researchers have seen that this projection of the so-called Virgin Mary, which is an image being projected from an aircraft in the sky of some sort. And so these images all seem to show that they're coming from like laser lights or something like that. And we've entered into an era now of artificial intelligence and what they're able to produce. And I've just seen in the last year or so that you could take a picture of me and the sound of my voice, and you can make an image of me saying some really off-the-wall stuff, and you know that can't be Ty would never say something like that because it's not an AI-created image. We're in the age. We're here. The deception is upon us. And I do believe the deception will be fake news in this so-called UFO. Now, back in the 80s, you remember that there was a TV show. It was a series. It went every night during the week. Can't think of what the name of it is. Anyway, this huge UFO had arrived, and these aliens were taking on human forms, and they were pretty much governing the world. Oh well, can't remember the name of the movie now, but it was very similar to what we're talking about right here. I believe this is going to be the deception of the world. They're going to believe this. Now that we've got the UFO disclosure and all the information is out there, and that which is once considered conspiracy theories, now we know that there's some truth to it. There's some truth to it. And so I believe that's exactly the deception. I've believed that for a long time. We've been programmed with the man from outer space, Star Wars and Star Trek, and right, I believe this heaven or fire coming down from heaven could in fact come from some kind of a fake UFO or starcraft kind of a thing to make you and I believe that we've been dominated by aliens from another planet, and they're nothing of the kind. Probably a real good idea of a resurgence of Genesis 6, because it said it was after that, It happened in Genesis 6, and it said it also happened after the flood as well. So it's been going on for a while. So deceiving, the idea of deceiving comes from the word wander. And you ever heard the root word comes from the word planet. And what's the difference between planets and stars is that the word planet means a wandering star, because astronomers look up and stars were usually pretty much set. But you had a few of these, 9 in particular, that moved around, and so they called them planets. Ancient history shows the arrival of the gods. You've seen on the History Channel, they'll talk about in the past that these gods supposedly showed up in time past and brought incredible technology to the world. And of course, the History Channel type ideas are trying to tell you that these were aliens who visited us a long time ago. And they weren't aliens. Genesis chapter 6, just believe the Bible. Puts everything in perspective. Right? God allows this deception, but only to those who made a choice to reject Jesus. One thing the Bible talks about is when the expression here is going to deceive those that dwell upon the earth, that has a reference to those who are unregenerate. Now, those of us who are believers now, we won't be here, but there will be people come to faith during that tribulation period. Well, they won't be deceived by it, but the rest of them will, those that dwell upon the earth. So he talks about this deception. Now notice what he goes on. We were in 2 Thessalonians before. In the same text, he says he was going to come with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. Remember what John 3:16 says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. So if you have been a believer in Jesus Christ, you're not one of them that perish. So with all deceivableness of unrighteousness and them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness. So God's going to allow this deception, but only to those who heard the gospel, was presented to them, and they said no. They made a conscious decision to reject Jesus Christ and his salvation. So God's going to allow them to believe this deception and fall for it. You ever wonder how you look at some people and they seem to really believe something with all their heart, and you're like, we're not seeing this. Oh, you had that buddy, he fell in love with some girl, and you saw her as not exactly a lady. And you go, so isn't she beautiful? And like, man, you need to take the blinders off, buddy. And so you see a lot of people like that, unfortunately. Now it says to make an image. Probably this image is going to be on the temple grounds, because 2 Thessalonians again, chapter 2 and verse 4, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This guy's got to talk about arrogant. Talk about a narcissist. This man wants you to worship him as God, and people are going to do it. So what is this image exactly? What are we talking about? Remember, Nebuchadnezzar set up his golden image one day, and I think it was, he had this vision of this man, I call it the metal man prophecy. Here comes Iron Man, right? And the head of gold was Babylon, the shoulders and stuff was silver, and on the various kingdoms that picture that. Then we find a few chapters later, he made this great image, and he called a command to everybody, when you hear the music play, bow down and worship my image. And if you don't play, I'm going to throw you into the furnace. Right? And there were 3 guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, said, we will not bow down to your image. He got thrown into the fire, and they came back out of it, by the way. So that's where the image is used 13 times in the book of Revelation, 3 times here and 6 other places. And what exactly are we talking about with this image? What is it he wants to present? Well, how many of you saw this movie? The Wizard of Oz. You saw this image he put up here, and everybody's standing back in terror. They're just awed by this great image. But really, it's just this old man behind the curtain. And of course, the dog's the hero. Remember that. Dogs, man. Cats didn't rescue him. It was a dog, right? And he's just putting this big image out. Same thing that seems to be going on. Think of something like kind of computer-generated stuff like in a rock concert. You know, in time past, there have been attempts by certain religious groups to bring images to life. And even Rome has been caught, maybe not in particular there, but certain local places where they would use ventriloquism to make an idol speak. They said, that idol's talking, and all the crazy people bow down to the thing. But we find ourselves in the rock concerts and halftime shows, and use all these special effects, and everybody's just awed by it. And of course, there's Batman, right? You put out the image projected in the sky, and Batman knows that he should come, right? You know it's coming, right? You know, this is mine. If you're coming, bring coffee and donuts. Don't forget donuts either, right? So he leads them to worship this image, however it is, and I think it's going to be computer generated. It's probably some type of AI, maybe right out in the open. It's probably not going to be a statue particularly. Something interesting, Zechariah talks about woe to the idol shepherd that leaveth the flock. Idol shepherd, a pastor, a shepherd who leads people to worship idols. And what do you put forth here that says if you don't worship the image, you'll be beheaded? Revelation chapter 20, verse 4. Those who would not worship the image, they were beheaded. Nebuchadnezzar promised the same thing as death if you don't worship my image, if you don't bow down and worship it. So everybody did except for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they had no fear. I like the way those boys talk, right? These are boys. Well, teenagers maybe, you know. And they said, well, our God is well able to deliver us out of your fiery furnace. But if not, we're still not going to bow down to your image. That's just the way. I'm not trying to be flippant, but we're not bowing down to your image. We're not going to disobey God to it. And so then he institutes in verse 16 and 17 the Mark of the Beast program. People, a lot of speculation about this. We did a study a while back. I called it Tales from the Crypto. I think it's on YouTube. I have to check and make sure. So I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail about this. But under threat of death, we are commanded to be local, global citizens. And the mark is to bring about a total economic control. Now, for years, I heard prophecy teachers talk about entering into a cashless society. Well, this thing goes a lot deeper than you think, right? And it goes back a lot further than you think. And if we kind of unthink some things that we have been taught about money, it's going to make a whole lot more sense to us. I mean, I am fascinated right now with the fact that whenever you go somewhere and they said, are you using our mobile app today? No. And I'm going to pay cash. I'm just old school guy, you know, I'm just not into that, right? My young son had to teach me how to deposit my check with the ATM machine. Right, so I don't know, I'm just an old guy. I've only recently started using a debit card, making purchases, and everything is done through some kind of the internet somehow, the interwebs, right? Which is all ones and zeros, right? I'll share with you something. Back in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s, there was this guy on PBS. The name was Louis Rukeyser, right? And he understood investing in the stock market and how you're going to make money. And when he spoke about investments, people listened. He had a way about him, you know. And I thought about one time when I was young and single and had money. It was a long time ago, right? I might make a little investment or something. Never got around to it, though. But I remember he said this on one of his programs, but it's in his book called What's Ahead for the Economy. Now listen to what he says, quote, some of the nation's leading experts on money have begun very quietly to make what many would regard as an astonishing admission. They don't know what they're talking about. In this case, it happens, they mean it literally. They don't know what money is in 1982. Take George W. McKinney Jr., a highly respected economist who is retiring next month from New York's Irving Trust Company. Is it then, I inquired innocently, that we just don't know what money is these days? Never did know, confessed McKinley. And then while listeners in our conversation chuckled nervously, made it clear he wasn't kidding. So let me ask you a question. What is money? If you pull out a dollar bill and say this is money, you might need some uneducating, as I did many years ago, right? As I did many years ago, right? So here's something here. What is money? Well, money was always considered something that had intrinsic value to it, the medium of exchange, okay? So if I happen to be able to have a lot of apple trees, right, and I got all these apples, and there are a lot more apples than I can eat, and after you eat so many apples, believe it or not, you can probably get tired of apples, maybe you want an orange. So you take your apple, and you trade it from another guy for oranges. Well, see, the guy with the oranges, he doesn't want oranges. He wants tomatoes. My favorite fruit is tomato, right? Never met a tomato I didn't like, right? He wants tomatoes. So he says, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take your apple, and I'll exchange it with the other guy for the tomato. And what became the medium of exchange? The apple. The apple became the medium of exchange. The trouble is, you really can't store apples too long. They kind of get rotten after a while. They get, nasty. They get... If you bite into an apple, that's my wife, she loves apples. If it doesn't go whoosh, when you bite into it, throw it in the trash, man. It's nasty, right? So is it something that won't get old? They use a medium of exchange? Well, people have always recognized gold and silver and copper as money. As a matter of fact, the word money in the original languages of both Hebrew and Greek is interchangeably with the word silver. I throw that in there for nothing. So we got ourselves into a idea of a cashless society. The coin. What is a coin? It's a stamped metal, any piece of metal, usually gold, silver, or copper, stamped by public authority and used as the medium of commerce. We sometimes give the name money to other coined metals, but to any other metal which rude nations use as a medium of trade. But among modern commercial nations, gold, silver, and copper are the only metals used for this purpose. Going on, we've got into more times with platinum, but these are all considered precious metals of value. Now, banknotes or bills of credit. This is what we use. We call it cash. We call it dollar bills, so-called. Banknotes are bills of credit issued by authority and exchangeable for coin or redeemable are also called money. As such, notes in modern times represent coin and are used as a substitute for it. If a man pays in hand for goods in banknotes, which are current, he is said to pay in ready money. Now, in old times when we only accepted gold and silver and copper, and you traveled long distances and you had your coin in a bag, there's a lot of things you don't want to carry it around. You go into a new town somewhere and people saw that bag on your side, you might get whacked over the head and lose it. So what do? You go to the bank, and the bank would give you their banknote. So you carry on these pieces of paper and you take it down to a store somewhere and you give them that piece of paper, and at the end of the day, go over to the bank and get real money for it. Because the paper is just like, in my day, writing out a check, because a check was simply a piece of paper saying you're going to get the money from my account. Right? Genesis chapter 13, verse 2, and Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. Genesis 23:16 says, and Abraham hearkened unto Ephraim, and Abraham weighed Ephraim the silver, which he had named in the audience of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, current money, with the merchants. So here's the thing. Let me ask you, what is paper worth? Well, most people say, I'm a funny guy. When I had trouble with the printer, and I try to save the paper, other people just throw it away, just paper. It's just a hang-up thing with me. But nobody really throws away gold and silver coins. Right? You keep that. You consider that a real value, right? And so when you hand someone a piece of paper, we're just passing the buck. We'll get to where it gets its value from here. It's not like it's completely worthless, but it'll shock you to find out how it gets its value, the paper currency that we use. Jeremiah 32, verse 9 and 10, and I bought the field of Hanamiel, my uncle's son, that was in Anathoth, and he weighed him the money, even 17 shekels of silver. And I subscribed the evidence and sealed it and took witness, and he weighed him the money in the balances. Right? So money simply means medium exchange. Economists today, they can't tell you what money is, but they'll try to tell you how to make money. But how are you, if you don't even know what it is, how do you know we're making money, right? Ancient Egyptian, there's a gold coin that's stamped, not as pretty as what we have here today. Also, ancient Egyptian coins, ancient Persia, they stamped them. Notice they had inscriptions on it. And that's supposed to tell you don't have to weigh it. It's supposed to tell you it weighs exactly this month, right? Found in Israel about the time of the Second Temple, or time of Christ, the Roman Empire. Right, here's another coin with a Caesar's picture on it. And what was popular before the American Revolution was something called the pieces of 8. You heard of this, made in Spain? Because Benjamin Franklin, our founders, did not trust the coins coming from George III because he was clipping the coin. In other words, it didn't weigh as much as it's supposed to. But they trusted the pieces of 8. And the cool thing about the pieces of 8 is you can make change with it. How about that, right? Well, one of the greatest inventions or thing to come along in America, in my opinion, was this, the Morgan silver dollar. This revolutionized the economy. These things were minted under the authority of the United States, but at the mine itself. And they were all uniform in weight. You knew exactly what you had, unless you get one of those from China and a magnet will stick to them. You watch buying Morgan silver dollars from China because they will cheat you on it. And here are gold coins, right, 1795. Here's another gold coin, 1878. Here is the Indian head gold coin. Love to have one of those, right? I used to have some of those, but I had to sell it. This is well, not this one, but this is a original, called a $20 gold piece, which was used all the way up through the 1950s. Actually, around 30s, because for some reason FDR decided that he wanted to make it illegal for you to own gold, and you have to bring all your gold to me, and I'll give you pieces of paper for it. So some Americans, they didn't buy that, but others were really patriotic, shall we say. Well, Ronald Reagan instituted the gold eagle in 1986, and I bought a set back then. I want you to notice this was paper money in the day, back in the old days. Now you read it, this thing has a contract on it. It says it's national currency, and above where you see United States of America, it says, you read that, secured by the United States bonds deposited with the Treasury, or like deposit under United there, of other securities. Now notice down here where it says $20, says we'll pay the bearer on demand $20, which means that's not $20, that's a piece of paper, which you take to the bank to get gold for. U.S. Constitution. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, no state shall coin money, emit bills of credit, paper money, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, which means using the Federal Reserve note is against the Constitution. So lock them up right now. Here is a silver certificate, an older one, from 1899. It says $1 worth of silver payable to the bearer on demand. It doesn't say that piece of paper is $1. It says you get $1 in silver for it when you turn it into the bank. Right? And here, some of you might have some of these. I have some. Unfortunately, you can't get silver for them now. But it says right above the United States, this certifies that there has been deposited in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 silver payable to the bearer on demand. How about that? That's different, huh? And now you have United States of America. No payable on demand. We got snookered, brother. We got snookered somewhere along the line. Where did the gold go? Where did the silver go? Somebody's got it. Here's a $10 note, Federal Reserve note, it says, right? It says down here, we'll pay the bearer on demand $10. Doesn't say exactly in what way, but notice it says this note right here is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable in lawful money at the United States Treasury or any Federal Reserve Bank. So it's legal tender, but it's not lawful money. There's a difference. See, I've said this before, it's legal to get an abortion, but it's never lawful. It's never lawful. Right? And here's a $10 note you probably have in your billfold right now. What happened to the promise of lawful money? And this is different. Now all these would say Federal Reserve note. I want you to understand the Federal Reserve is not a bank of the United States. And who owns the Federal Reserve? We don't know. Most people think they're not even Americans that own the Federal Reserve Bank. I can go down that rabbit hole, and that will get us a rabbit trail. It'll be a long time. Notice this one here. It doesn't say Federal Reserve note. It says United States note. Now, it's talking about paying the bearer on demand. You know who issued this one? John F. Kennedy. He didn't last long after that. I'm just asking questions. Now, here, this is put out by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. This is published by the Federal Reserve Bank. This is the value of your paper money, right here. Banks create money by monetizing the private debts of businesses, individuals, and governments. That is, they create amounts of money against the value of those IOUs. You go borrow money from the bank. What makes that money valuable? The house you borrowed it from. The business you borrowed becomes the value of that note. It has nothing on its own but your debt. So every one of these are debt instruments. You want to know why we're trillions of dollars in debt? Now don't get crooked here. I don't want anybody to get crooked, but we have never, if you've paid with paper money, or the example of it, you have never paid your debts. This is, you familiar with this Visa card? That was pretty, maybe you've seen this before. Strange, I mean, just asking questions. Fortunately, this is in Spanish here, but the VI is a Roman numeral 6. The S is a Greek, represents Greek in 6, and the A is 6 from Babylon. So what you have, 666. Oh, it goes on here. This came out, I remember when they started doing this back in the 80s. It's called the UPC code. Right? And see these two lines. Every one of them will have these 2 lines here, 2 lines here, 2 lines here. This one here tells you that line is a 6. Does that mean I'm doing the mark of the beast with that? No, I'm just telling you that the system is already there. When you're told that you have to have it on your body and you have to observe allegiance to the global government for it, that's another thing. But I'll tell you what, you want to talk about real money? If you can't hold it in your hands, you don't have it. You don't own it. Jesus said, occupy till I come. Occupy till I come. We got to deal, this is a system. We're in this system the way it is. It's not our choice. People are happy when you give them paper to pay your bill, then give it paper to pay your bill. You know, when in 1964, a quarter was made of silver and has a value of about $4. And you know, my daddy was buying gas in 1964 for 25 cents a gallon. Think about that for a minute. When I first started driving, it was like 50-something cents a gallon. But I want to tell you, a silver quarter is worth about what you're paying for gas right now. Right? Jesus said this, lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Poor Greeks a couple years ago woke up one day and found out their bank accounts were completely empty because Greeks had debt to pay to the international banksters. And you know that could happen to you or I. We could wake up one day, I mean, everything's electronic entries now. You don't actually have coins, right, that you're hiding somewhere. If you have some, you should. That's wise to get some of that stuff and hide it away. But what I'm saying is, you could wake up tomorrow and they could just zip, and everything in your account's gone. Matthew 11, verse 28, 30. Jesus says, come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. So if you've been floored by anything you heard here today, maybe it's old news to you guys, I don't know. But maybe you have an eye-opener. Maybe you're thinking, man, we are so close to this. It could happen tomorrow. And maybe it's caused you some anxiety. Don't. You know, remember when in the upper room discourse, I said this before, Jesus told the apostles that night, he said, I'm going to go in Jerusalem. Some bad guys are going to arrest me and they're going to kill me. And I'm telling you this because I want you to know what happens, that when you see it happens, you know I told you before, because it's not a mistake. It's not a mistake. I want you to tell you beforehand so you know when it happens, you know I was on it. The same thing about Bible prophecy. He's telling you this so when you find out tomorrow it happens, remember the Bible told you. God is not leaving you in the dark. It's the world that's leaving you in the dark. And false shepherds in sheep's clothing. Wolves in sheep's clothing, they're the ones misleading you. Come unto me, Jesus said, all you that labor and are heavy laden, I will give you rest. Are you struggling with a burden? Do you feel heavy laden? Maybe, massive bills or health issues or some other kind of thing. Come to Jesus. Let him take it away. Let him lift that burden off of you. Don't carry it around. Why? It's like, I don't know if you ever tried to drive a vehicle without power steering. My last truck, power steering went out. I mean, it's fun when the power steering's gone, But you want to be a he-man, so I don't need power steering. But if you've got it, isn't it kind of foolish not to use it? I mean, if it's available to you, does it make you more of a man to not use the power steering in your vehicle? Right? I mean, all I'm saying is Jesus has made incredible power to us, and he's ready to take away all of your burdens. Why carry them around and think you're a tough guy or a tough lady or you're a better Christian or you're more spiritual than somebody else? No. Give it to Jesus. Broken dreams, broken hearts, whatever it is you're going through, give it to Jesus. Don't let the events that he told us is going to happen affect you, because Jesus controls the storm. He's the master of the sea. Put your trust in him and find peace. Let's stand and have a word of prayer.